Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria, on with Shanda Webster. She's hosting the first ever Caribbean Baking Awards in Tortola, February 16 and 17 of 2024. We're discussing the award ceremony and also the science of baking and how baking has evolved. Welcome back to the program, Shanda.
Thanks again for having me.
All right. Well, before we get into the science of baking so that I can learn a few things to improve my baking, because Christmas is around the corner and I love cake. But you also are trying to get a celebrity baker, someone huge in the business, to be part of the first Caribbean Baking Awards in Tortola, are you not?
Yes, I am.
But still not saying who it is. I mean, you gave me so much information that I know I can find this celebrity cake artist.
I mean, I can
Um,
give you the
and
information.
and
I could probably.
who happens to have a Grenadian mom as well.
Yes,
Well, I found
yes.
that
So
truly
she is
interesting.
part. She is,
Grenadians are
even though
everywhere
she
doing
was
big
not.
things.
Yes, I mean, even though she wasn't born in Grenada,
Hmm.
um, her mom is from Grenada, so she is half Caribbean, and the fact that she is one of my inspiration. I mean, when I started like really into the baking, um, when I started my business, my sister sent me a YouTube video of her, and that's another clue that can let you know who it is. Um, when I looked at her video, she does a lot of novelty cakes and huge cakes. So her cakes are not small; they're big. You're smiling, so I guess you have an idea of who I'm talking about now,
No,
right?
I'm about to Google while you're explaining to me.
So I looked at her video and I was like, wow, I would really love to do these type of cakes. And I subscribe
Are
to
you are
her.
you are you are you any good at it now? Have you been able to make those
Oh
huge? I know you
yes,
said
I must
hyper realistic cakes are your
hyper
passion.
realistic. Yes, hyper realistic and the sculpted and the novelty cakes. Those three are my favorite because I'm able to use my art skills
Mm.
to do what I gotta do through cakes. And I I I, I started enrolling in her classes, um, and I've learned a lot. So when this opportunity came about, I'm like, okay, this is the best time to bring her in because she's Caribbean, half Caribbean, and this is something that she loves. And I know a lot of bakers literally follow her. And based on some of the nominees that I've spoken to, because I did let them know who it would have been, they are very, very exciting. And she's been judging a lot of Netflix cake series. Right now, I'm looking at season 2 where she's judging Crime Kitchen, and these type of shows. I am stick on these videos of hers and what she's judging. So based on the fact that she's a celebrity, and I reached out to her manager. They're actually just waiting for confirmation from the network that they're signed with, so that they can confirm the dates that I need her here in Tortola. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Now let's get into how to cake it by explaining to me how to make it and the science.
You
See
are
that right
good.
there? See
You are
that?
good. You are good.
And
You are
so
very good. Yes.
so
So
yeah,
the
I mean,
celebrity guest is Yolanda Gamp.
well, I wasn't trying to force you or anything, but so you said cake has baking has evolved. Explain that.
Back in those days, they used to make bread not in oven and not how we do it now. Um, there is a history behind flour, and that right now I'm teaching my class about all of these different techniques that have changed. Um, bread used to make from outside oven, which some of us, some places still use the outside oven, the stone and everything to put their bread in. They do have an oven that when you dig the hole and you put fire in it, then you slap the dough of the bread at the corner of the hole. That's another way that they used to bake bread. But now it has evolved from baking bread outside into an inside kitchen with these fancy stoves. They do have the commercial stove and you have the house stove, so everything have changed then. And of course, they do have, when it comes to the flour, they have the bread, they have the pastries, and cakes are now even different because when you could get a simple round cake, it's now evolved into these extravagant, beautiful cakes that are displayed on showcase. Sometimes those cakes are not even cut, but because of the how they look, they are so tall, and they have details on it, to make that event or birthday come alive. So it have probably started from $0 to now thousands of dollars invested in these cakes and products, and every day new things are coming out. And it's like we bakers are like nurses and doctors, we don't stop learning. There's always something new coming out in the market that you have to be on top of, because everybody wants the trend. So it has come a long way, I must say. It has definitely come a long way.
In the meantime, I'm just praying that I don't put too much baking powder in my mixture.
And
But
back in them days too,
I'm good
you
at
know,
making bread though.
yes, and the baking of the bread too, they now have a technique. So there's something called the 12 steps of baking, where each step, in order to get good quality, smooth bread and not have the bread, sometimes when you bake a loaf of bread and you see it split to the side
Hmm.
and you want to know why it's doing that, there is a technique in folding the bread in order for it not to split. And then there's a tech that you have to be able to rest the dough for a certain amount of time for the gluten to do its work, and the gluten to be able to stretch, um, and work to develop, to make the bread, come so high to where you want it to be. So it's not only baking powder, which is a leavening agent that rises. You have the yeast, and there are different types of yeast. There's starter yeast, there's dry yeast, there's instant yeast. So you have to know which one to
To
use
use
into
for what
whatever
bread
product.
product you're trying to
Yes,
make. Yeah.
correct.
Well, okay. Well, the part about resting the dough, I've got that. I use the yeast. Of course, my challenge is the baking powder in my cakes. You don't want to have your mouth burning now.
And baking powder don't always have to go in cakes, because I use
Oh,
cakes
really?
that don't use baking powder. Correct. So
Oh, okay.
there are different types of
Hmm.
cakes. There
Hmm.
are the creaming method. There are the folding method. There are the um, the one that you use with egg whites only, and you have the angel cakes, you have the chiffon cakes, you have the sponge cake. So there are different type of sponge cake too. There's sponge cake where you can use the egg whites, and there's sponge cake when you're doing the creaming method. Now the creaming method, as you know, is what we are used to, creaming the butter
The
and the
butter.
sugar. And you
That
remember
takes
those days
forever.
that we used to use a wooden spoon and we used to
Mm-hmm.
whip that sugar until it's melted. Now you don't have to do that. You can now use, a mixer,
A mixer.
a hand mixer, or a tabletop mixer, those kind of stuff. So yeah, that's another way, cake has evolved and
Baking has
changed.
evolved. But one of the
Yes.
things you didn't, your competition, your baking awards is only going to be uh, cakes, or in the online nominations, it was a whole host of areas that were decided on? Because you've got pastries, you've got bread, you've got cake, a bunch of stuff that you do bake. But we talked
So
about a lot
for
about cake in the first segment.
yes, so and this is for the award ceremony you're talking about, or you're talking about the 16th, the cake showcase.
Well, the cake showcase speaks to us, but I'm talking about the first Caribbean Baking Awards, because it says Baking Awards. Is there anything where other baked products are considered?
So for the categories, we do have pastry chef of the year, and the pastry chef of the year are for pastry chef that works in restaurants, um, whether it's a restaurant in hotels, because pastry chef, it covers basically everything, to pastries, to bread, to bonbons. I mean those different and dealing with chocolate and stuff. Um, so it's a wide category when it comes to pastry, and then when it comes to the baking, it's still wide because you have the baking the bread, which falls on both sides, and also on for cakes. And when you say cakes, they do have different type of cakes. Like we mentioned, the buttercream and the fondant. So each person is fitted in the category that they are comfortable in. So we do have pastry chef of the year. We do have best learning experience. So we do have a category for teachers or school who teaches, whether they teach online baking or physical teaching within a school. So that's a category for them. We also have best painted cake. So for persons who can use um, edible colors like gel colors and mix with a little alcohol to dilute it to be like paint, like you're painting something. They do have persons that does that kind of talent, and we have a category for that also. For the showcase, I did, however, had someone message me about dealing with chocolate. No, chocolate is very it's very technical. So you have to be in the right atmosphere to deal with chocolate, because then if it's even with us working with chocolate, we have a body temperature, and the temperature tends to melt chocolate very fast. So if I don't have a environment for chocolate, I wouldn't be able to have the persons that are good in dealing with chocolate to come in to showcase their chocolate. The place has to be really cold with temperature. So and it depends to having things to
In the case
fire
of
and
chocolate,
baking and stuff.
let me act like I know something here by asking, couldn't you do the ice bath? A bowl of water with ice cubes in it, and you keep the bowl with the chocolate inside of that and keep it cool?
So the ice is also gonna melt. The ice is water. So if the temperature is not cool enough, then you have the ice melting fast. No, they do have these things that you can plug in to keep the chocolate melted. But when you keep it melted and you're now forming to make whatever object that they're doing with the chocolate, how are we going to keep those chocolates cool?
Mm.
So it is something that I have to think about for the next one, because I know they will have persons contacting me about what they're good in and they would like to showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So I will keep researching, and as the gentleman, I don't know if he was from Grenada or St. Vincent, but he deals with only chocolate, and he sent me his work and it's amazing. So I have to be able to add that to the next showcase and make sure that his environment is good enough for him, because I don't want to have chocolate melting all over the place. So yes, and eventually as we go along, more categories and more things will be added in, because like I said, baking industry, everything is new. There's something new every single day. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember trying to make flaky pastry once, and I almost gave up halfway because the process, you've got to fold and fold and fold
For which pastry?
and roll flaky pastry. Um,
Oh, yes. So right now,
you
I
know,
just finished that class with my student, which is laminated dough. So there are two different types of pastries. There are the puff pastries, which is the one that doesn't have the yeast, and then there's the flaky one, but we call it scientifically, it is called the laminated dough
ooh.
that you use for
Now I
that
know.
type of pastry. So it's a lot of folding with the butter inside
Hmm.
and rolling and folding and all of that. That when you cut into the dough, you see all these layers, beautiful layers in the dough. So yeah, and that is the most delicious pastry ever.
It is.
And my
That's why I
student did
tried to
very well
make
in that
it.
class.
That's why I tried to make it. I
Yes,
was like,
it's
oh
a lot of
no,
work, but at the
this is,
end, it's beautiful.
this is. I need to stick to doing interviews. Leave the pastry making alone. You know.
But
Well,
I mean, you can take my class and anytime you're ready, because I do have students from different parts of the world and the Caribbean taking my class. So, yeah,
that's something
whenever
to
you're
think
ready.
about. That's well. It was a pleasure to have you on to get a mini class because you clarified a few things to me, including the name of flaky pastry, which is laminated
Yes.
pastry. I didn't know that. Thank you so much for joining me on the narrative. Good luck with the first Caribbean Baking Awards that's being held in
Thank
Tortola
you.
on the 16th and 17th of February, and hopefully my team and I can make it there to cover this.
Ooh, I
And
would love that.
Mm. And thank you so much for being on the narrative. And go
Thank you for having
Grenada!
me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. All right. This is The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier, speaking there to Shanda Webster, who is putting on the first ever Caribbean Baking Awards in Tortola. More when we come back.